The photo was still on my phone screen when my wife in a dark suit dress, laughing with a stranger, his hand too close on her back, their bodies moving under the bright corporate lights. I sat in the hotel lounge with the noise of glasses clinking and laughter floating around me. My phone buzzed, and when I looked down, I froze. It was a picture someone had just sent me on WhatsApp. Emily was in the middle of the dance floor, smiling like I hadn't seen in months. Her hand was resting on the shoulder of a tall man I didn't know. His hand was on her waist, too low to be casual. They were moving close, too close. I stared at the photo, unable to breathe. As I scanned the crowd, she wasn't at the table. Where was she? The event hall was packed, lights flashing on the dance floor, music booming. Everyone was busy drinking and laughing, but all I could think about was that photo. Who had sent it? And why? My palms felt sweaty as I stood up and pushed through the guests, eyes darting everywhere, searching for her. Finally, I saw her. Emily was on the far side of the room, laughing, her hair swinging as she spun around with the same man from the photo. The music drowned everything, but I didn't need sound to know what I felt. My throat was dry, my jaw tight. She hadn't even noticed me. The man leaned in, whispering something that made her laugh harder. I couldn't move. My body was frozen, like my shoes were nailed to the floor. I grabbed my drink and forced myself to sit back down. I didn't want to make a scene. Not yet. But my mind kept spinning. Why was she dancing with him like that? Was she drunk? Was it innocent? Or was there something I didn't know? Every time she laughed, it cut deeper. My phone buzzed again. Another message. You should keep an eye on her. No name. No number. Just the message. I couldn't stop staring. Everyone else seemed normal, chatting, drinking, networking. But to me, the room was spinning. Who was the man? Why was he here? I knew most of the faces, but not his. He wasn't from my company, and Emily never mentioned him. My chest felt heavy, like I was sinking. I kept asking myself, should I get up and pull her away? Or sit and pretend nothing was wrong? The night dragged on, but I couldn't focus on anything else. Every move she made with him burned into my brain. She looked happy. Too happy. And that cut worse than anger. I wanted to shout, but I also wanted answers. Who sent me the photo? Why send it to me and not anyone else? What did they want me to do? My phone buzzed again. She's not who you think she is. The music grew louder, but all I could hear was the ringing in my ears. Emily turned suddenly, locking eyes with me across the room. For a moment, her smile faltered. She knew I saw. She knew I was watching. But instead of stopping, she let the man twirl her again, her laughter filling the room. And in that moment, I knew this night would not end the way I wanted. As I sat there, I realized something. This wasn't just about a dance. Whoever sent me those messages wanted me to see this. They wanted to break something. Maybe my marriage. Maybe me. My pulse quickened. This wasn't random. This was planned. And I had no idea how deep it went. The night was no longer about a corporate party. It was about the messages, the photo, and the stranger who seemed to know my wife better than I did. I forced myself to stand up, legs shaky, and walked toward the dance floor. The crowd shifted around me, laughing, clapping, snapping pictures, but I only saw Emily and the stranger. My heart pounded harder with every step. By the time I reached the edge of the dance floor, the music changed, slower now, and his hand slid from her waist to her back. I clenched my fists, my jaw grinding, and finally stepped forward. "Emily," I said, my voice sharp, too loud. She turned, startled, her smile flickering. The man raised his brows but didn't move his hand. I could feel heat rising in my face. "We need to talk," I added, trying to stay calm. She hesitated, then gave the man a small smile, like an apology, before stepping away. I grabbed her arm gently but firm, leading her off the floor. The man's eyes followed us the whole way, and I hated how calm he looked. "What are you doing?" I asked once we were away from the noise. My words came out harsher than I wanted. Emily looked annoyed, not guilty. "It's just a dance," she said, brushing off her dress. Her voice was steady, almost cold. "You're making it bigger than it is." I stared at her, shocked at how casual she sounded. I wanted to believe her, but the texts in my pocket screamed otherwise. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photo. "Someone sent me this," I said. "And these messages." I scrolled quickly to show her the words. Emily froze for a second, her eyes flicking to the screen, then back to me. "James," she said slowly, "this is ridiculous. Someone's trying to mess with you. With us." But she wouldn't meet my eyes. That tiny detail made my stomach twist. Before I could push further, Sophie Lane, Emily's co-worker, appeared, holding 2 glasses of wine. "You two hiding?" she teased, handing 1 glass to Emily. She looked at me, curious. "Everything okay?" Emily forced a smile and nodded quickly. Too quickly. "Fine," she said. But I knew it wasn't fine. Sophie glanced between us, sensing tension, then shrugged and walked back toward the crowd. Emily took a long sip of wine, her hands shaking slightly. I leaned closer. "Who is he, Emily? I've never seen him before." Her lips tightened. "He's just someone Daniel invited. A client, I think. Nothing important." But her tone was clipped, defensive. The more she spoke, the less I trusted her. My phone buzzed again in my pocket. Another message. I pulled it out when she wasn't looking. She's lying. My blood ran cold. Whoever was sending these knew too much. I wanted to confront her again, but Daniel Briggs, my boss, suddenly appeared. "James. There you are," he boomed, clapping my shoulder. "Having a good time? Drinks are on me tonight." He looked between us and smiled, oblivious to the tension. Emily straightened immediately, mask back on, smiling politely. I forced a nod, swallowing my anger. Daniel rambled about clients and partnerships, but I barely heard him. All I wanted was to know who the stranger really was. When Daniel finally walked off, I scanned the crowd again. The stranger was gone. My stomach dropped. Where did he go? I rushed back into the main hall, pushing past people, searching every corner. Emily followed slowly, annoyed, like I was embarrassing her. "James, stop this," she hissed. But I couldn't. Something was wrong, and whoever was sending those messages wasn't finished. Just as I turned toward the exit, my phone buzzed again. A new photo. My heart sank. This time, it wasn't just Emily and the stranger. It was Emily, outside the hotel, standing too close to him, their faces inches apart. The photo was dark but clear enough. And the message below it read, "Want proof?" The dance was no longer the problem. The problem was outside, in the shadows, and Emily was at the center of it. As I stared at the photo, my hands shook, and I almost dropped the phone. Emily was standing outside the hotel with him. Oliver, the man I didn't know, the man who had just been holding her close on the dance floor. And now it looked like they were about to kiss. I looked up quickly, scanning the room, but Emily was right beside me. She hadn't moved. Which meant, the photo was taken seconds ago. I tried to think straight. How could she be here with me and outside at the same time? Was the photo old? Or staged? I wanted to believe it was fake, but the detail was too sharp. It looked real. My stomach churned. "Emily," I said carefully, "were you outside just now?" She blinked, confused. "No. Why would I be?" She laughed lightly, but her voice cracked at the end. My doubt grew heavier. I couldn't stand still. I told her I needed air and walked quickly toward the exit. She called after me, but I ignored her. My pulse thudded in my ears as I pushed the doors open and stepped outside into the cool night air. The hotel's stone steps glistened from earlier rain, and the street lamps threw long shadows. I searched the dark corners, heart racing, but the space was empty. Oliver wasn't there. Neither was Emily. Just silenced, I checked my phone again, zooming in on the photo. It was right here, the exact spot where I now stood. Same steps. Same lamp. Same angle. Whoever took it was standing only a few feet from where I was now. My skin prickled. Someone was watching us, following us, close enough to capture this. I spun around, scanning the rooftops and windows, but nothing moved. Then I heard it, a soft laugh. Not from the street. From behind me. I turned quickly, but it was only a couple walking out of the hotel, drunk and cheerful, arm in arm. They brushed past me and hailed a cab. My shoulders sagged with relief, but only for a second. Because just then, another message pinged. Go back inside. You're missing the best part. My grip on the phone tightened until my knuckles went white. I rushed back through the doors and into the event hall. The music was louder now, the party wilder. People were on the dance floor, drinks spilling, laughter echoing. And there she was, Emily, in the center again, this time with Sophie and two other women, dancing and smiling like nothing was wrong. Relief washed over me for a moment. But then I saw him. Oliver. Standing at the edge of the crowd, watching Emily with a half smile. He didn't move. He didn't dance. Just watched. I moved toward him, but the crowd was thick. He noticed me, and instead of looking away, he raised his glass slightly, like a toast, before disappearing into the throng of people. I shoved through, but by the time I reached the spot, he was gone again. It was like he could vanish at will. My breathing grew shallow. Every time I thought I had him, he slipped away. I returned to Emily, grabbing her arm again. Who is he really? I demanded. She frowned, pulling away from me. James, stop. You're ruining this. You're paranoid. Her words stung, but not as much as the look in her eyes. Fear, quickly masked by anger. Before I could press her, Sophie leaned in again, grinning. Dance with us, James. Lighten up, she chirped. Emily forced a laugh, trying to play along, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. My phone buzzed once more. I stepped back, heart pounding, and opened it. This time, it wasn't a photo. It was a video. My breath caught. The clip showed Emily and Oliver, standing outside, talking close, her hand brushing his chest. Then the clip froze, paused at the moment their faces nearly touched. And beneath the video, the words, "Decide how much you want to know." The messages weren't just showing me Emily. They were daring me to dig deeper. And I didn't know if I was ready for what I'd find. I couldn't take my eyes off the frozen video on my phone. My wife's face was tilted up toward Oliver's, her hand resting on his chest like they were sharing something intimate. I felt sick, like the floor was tilting beneath me. Emily was still just a few feet away, dancing with Sophie, but this clip was proof of something. Proof of what, though? Was it harmless? Or betrayal? My stomach twisted with every question. I slipped away from the dance floor, moving toward the bar where the light was dimmer. I needed space to think. I replayed the video again, slower this time. The angle was too perfect. Whoever was filming stood close, hidden, like they wanted me to see every detail. The clip cut off right before their lips touched. My chest burned with anger. Someone wasn't just watching, they were controlling the story. Feeding me just enough to make me doubt her. I looked up suddenly, scanning the room for Oliver. He wasn't on the dance floor anymore. I searched the corners, the exits, even the balcony above the hall. Nothing. He'd vanished again. But I had the feeling he wasn't gone. He was somewhere, waiting, watching me the same way whoever was sending these videos was. My skin crawled with the thought that maybe the two were connected. Maybe Oliver wasn't just a guest. Maybe he was the bait. Emily found me minutes later, her smile forced but her eyes sharp. "Why did you run off again?" she asked, almost accusing. I shoved the phone in my pocket before she could see. "I needed air," I muttered. She sighed heavily, annoyed. "James, you're overthinking. You're ruining this night." Her voice was calm, but her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her bracelet. That tiny shake told me everything. She was hiding something. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed again. I pulled it out discreetly and froze. This time it wasn't a photo or a video. It was a live feed. My own face filled the screen, the camera angle tilted from somewhere high up. I looked around quickly. Someone was streaming me in real time. My blood ran cold. Whoever this was, they weren't just watching Emily. They were watching me too. I turned slowly, scanning the chandeliers, the balconies, the shadows between pillars. My heart raced as I imagined hidden cameras everywhere. Or worse, someone holding a phone, recording me right now, blending into the crowd. Emily touched my arm, concerned. "What's wrong?" she whispered. I forced a tight smile. "Nothing." But inside, panic churned. If they could see me, they could see everything. I excused myself and went straight to the bathroom, locking the door behind me. My reflection in the mirror looked pale, eyes wide. I held the phone up again. The live feed was still running. The camera angle had shifted slightly, as if whoever was filming had moved closer. My pulse thudded painfully in my ears. "What do you want?" I whispered into the phone, even though I knew they couldn't hear me. Seconds later, the feed cut off. Screen black. I splashed water on my face and tried to steady my breathing. My mind was racing. This wasn't random. Someone had planned this night. The texts, the photos, the videos, now the live feed. It wasn't just about Emily. It was about me too. Whoever it was wanted to tear something apart. My marriage. My job. My sanity. I couldn't let them win. But I also couldn't ignore what I'd seen, so I left the bathroom. My phone buzzed one last time. A new message waited for me. "You have a choice. Ask her now. Or watch what happens later." My breath caught. My hand tightened around the phone. My heart wanted answers, but my head told me it was a trap. Either way, the game had started, and I was already losing. Whoever was behind the messages wasn't just showing me Emily anymore. They were forcing me to act. And I had no idea what would happen if I didn't. I walked back into the event hall, the phone heavy in my pocket like a weapon. The music was still loud, people were laughing, dancing, drunk and careless, but I couldn't see any of it. All I saw was Emily across the room, talking to Sophie and another man from her office, smiling like nothing had happened. My chest burned. I couldn't wait anymore. Whoever was texting me wanted me to ask her. And maybe I needed to. I forced my way through the crowd until I was standing right in front of her. She turned, surprised by my expression. "James. What now?" she asked, irritation already in her voice. I didn't answer right away. My hand shook as I pulled out my phone, showing her the latest message. "You have a choice. Ask her now. Or watch what happens later." Her eyes flickered quickly over the screen, then back to me. She looked pale for just a second, then forced a laugh. "Who's sending these? Some prank?" "This isn't a prank," I said firmly, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "Someone is following us. Taking photos. Sending videos. Of you. With him." My voice cracked on the last word. Emily stiffened, her mask slipping again. She glanced around quickly, as if checking who might be listening. "Not here," she whispered, gripping my arm. "We'll talk outside." Her sudden change in tone scared me more than anything. We moved toward the side exit, out into a quieter hallway lined with framed photos of old company events. My heart hammered as I waited for her to explain. She paced back and forth, chewing her lip. "Okay," she said finally. "Yes, I know him. Oliver. He's not just some random client. He's someone I used to know. From before." My stomach dropped. "Before? Before me? What do you mean?" I asked, voice low and tight. Emily hesitated, eyes darting everywhere but mine. "We dated. Years ago. Briefly. It wasn't serious. I didn't even know he'd be here tonight until I saw him." Her words hit like bricks, one after another. Dated. Years ago. And she hadn't told me. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. "Why didn't you say something?" I asked, my voice rising. "Why hide it?" She crossed her arms defensively. "Because it didn't matter. Until now." My phone buzzed again, cutting through the silence. I pulled it out with shaking hands. Another photo. This time it showed Emily and Oliver, but not outside. Not earlier. This was now, taken seconds ago, while we stood here arguing. My blood froze. The angle was from the far end of the hallway. In the photo, I could see myself holding up my phone, and Emily looking defensive. Someone was close. Right now. watching us. Emily's face drained of color when I showed her. This is insane, she whispered. Her eyes darted down the hallway, to the corners, to the shadows. James, someone's here. My pulse raced, adrenaline kicking in. Without thinking, I marched to the end of the hallway, scanning every door, every corner, but it was empty. No one. The photo had been taken, sent, and whoever did it had slipped away again. I turned back to Emily, shaking my head. If this is nothing, then why are they targeting you? Why Oliver? Why tonight? My voice cracked with frustration. She shook her head quickly. I don't know. I swear I don't know. He just showed up, and now this. James, I'm scared. For the first time that night, she looked genuinely terrified. And that terrified me more than her lies. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed once more. My throat went dry as I opened it. This time it wasn't a photo or video. It was a location pin. The caption below it read, "Come if you want the truth." I looked at Emily, who was shaking her head, whispering don't. But I knew one thing. Whoever was behind this wasn't stopping. And the truth was waiting. Whether I was ready or not, it wasn't just about photos anymore. It was about where they wanted me to go. And what I'd find if I followed. I stared at the glowing red pin on my phone screen. It marked a spot only a few streets away from the hotel. The message below repeated in my head, "Come if you want the truth." My chest felt heavy, my thoughts tangled. Whoever was behind this wanted me to leave the safety of the crowd. To step into the dark. Emily's hand closed around my wrist suddenly. "James," she whispered urgently, "don't. It's a trap." I pulled my arm free gently but firmly. "If this is a trap," I said, voice low, "then I need to know why. Why us? Why tonight?" Emily shook her head hard, panic in her eyes. "Because of Oliver," she blurted out, louder than she meant to. Her voice cracked. I froze, staring at her. "What about him?" I asked slowly. Her lips trembled, but before she could answer, Sophie's voice called from the hall. "You two hiding again?" Emily stiffened, plastering a fake smile onto her face. Emily leaned close, whispering fiercely in my ear. "Don't go. Please. If you go, it will get worse." Her words sent a shiver through me. Worse than this. Worse than photos, videos, being watched every second. I didn't know if she was protecting me, or herself. Sophie wandered off again, humming, oblivious. Emily's eyes stayed locked on mine, pleading, but my curiosity burned hotter. Whoever was pulling the strings had me cornered, and I couldn't walk away without answers. I glanced back at my phone. The pin blinked, almost mocking me. I zoomed in on the map, an alley behind a closed bookstore just a few minutes' walk away. Too close. Too easy. My instinct screamed at me to stay, but another voice whispered, "What if she's lying again? What if the truth is out there, not here?" My heart hammered. The choice weighed like lead. Emily grabbed my sleeve, her voice shaking. "If you go, James, you'll see things you can't unsee. You'll regret it." Her words cut sharp, like she knew exactly what waited there. That terrified me. "What are you hiding from me?" I asked. She looked away, tears glinting in her eyes under the harsh hallway lights. For the first time that night, she didn't answer. Silence pressed heavier than any lie. The music from the hall grew louder as the party escalated, laughter and cheers spilling into the hallway, completely out of sync with the war between us. I shoved my phone into my pocket and took a step toward the exit. Emily blocked my path, voice breaking. "If you walk out that door, don't expect me to follow. Don't expect me to explain." My heart ached, but my anger boiled. "Then you'd better hope what I find out there doesn't explain it for you," I snapped. I pushed past her and walked quickly through the hotel lobby, ignoring the stares of other guests. My reflection in the glass doors looked pale, haunted, almost like a stranger. I stepped into the night, cool air rushing my face, the street buzzing faintly with distant traffic. I pulled out my phone again, the pin pulsed on the screen, guiding me like a beacon into the dark streets of England. As I followed the map, every street lamp, every passing shadow made my skin crawl. My footsteps echoed on the wet pavement, each one louder than the last. I checked behind me twice, convinced someone was following, but the street was empty. The closer I got to the alley, the heavier the air felt. My chest tightened as if the city itself was warning me to turn back. Finally, I turned the corner and saw it. The narrow alley, half lit by a flickering lamp. The bookstore's windows were dark, shutters pulled down. The pin on my phone stopped blinking. I was here. My mouth went dry. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and stepped forward. That's when I saw it. A figure at the far end of the alley. Waiting. Still. Watching. The truth wasn't waiting in a message anymore. It was waiting in the flesh. And it was staring right at me. The figure didn't move when I stopped at the mouth of the alley. The weak light from the flickering street lamp barely touched them. I could only make out the shape of a man, tall, broad, and unnervingly still. My breath puffed white in the cold night air as I whispered, "Who are you?" No answer. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't check it. Every nerve screamed that this was the person who had been watching me. I took a cautious step forward, the wet pavement slick under my shoes. The man shifted slightly, just enough to let the dim light catch the edge of his face. A jawline. Stubble. Cold eyes locked on mine. "You shouldn't have come," he said, his voice calm, deep, and unnervingly steady. My stomach twisted. He knew me. "Why are you doing this?" I demanded. My voice cracked, echoing off the walls of the narrow passage. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled something from his coat pocket. Small, rectangular, and glowing faintly. A phone. He held it up like proof. "You've been living a lie," he said flatly. "And I'm here to show you what she really is." My throat tightened. Emily. Every word out of this stranger's mouth made my chest burn. "Who sent you?" I asked. His lip curled into a bitter smirk. "She did." For a second, I thought I misheard him. "Emily." The name slipped out before I could stop it. The man nodded slowly. "She's not the woman you think she is. You've only seen the mask she wears for you." His words twisted my insides, but I forced myself to stay calm. "If you've got something to show me, I said, though my voice trembled. My fists clenched at my sides. The man swiped the phone screen and then held it out. The glow illuminated a video, grainy but clear enough. Emily. Her face. Laughing. Her arms around Oliver. But it wasn't from tonight. This was older. Somewhere private. Somewhere intimate. My legs went weak, and I almost stumbled. My eyes refused to blink. The man's voice dropped lower. "She's been lying to you for a long time." Anger and denial fought inside me, tearing me apart. This could be fake, I spat, but my words lacked force. He slipped the phone back into his pocket like it meant nothing to him. "You'll find more," he said, stepping closer. The lamp buzzed overhead, light flashing across his face, scar across his cheek, eyes sharp like blades. "And when you do, you'll understand." The air grew colder as he closed the distance between us. My pulse hammered so loud I could barely hear. "Why me?" I asked. My voice was barely above a whisper. He tilted his head, studying me like I was a puzzle. Then he leaned in slightly. "Because the truth was never meant for you." His words chilled me to the bone. I stepped back, forcing myself to breathe, to keep some distance. "If this is about Emily, I'll talk to her myself," I said. His laugh was sharp, humorless. "Talk? You really think she'll tell you the truth? You don't know her like I do." He shoved his hands back into his coat, already turning away. "You'll see soon enough." I wanted to chase him, demand more, but my body felt locked in place. My chest heaved as the darkness swallowed him whole. A single thought pounded in my head. What if he's right? I pressed my palms into my eyes, trying to block out the images of Emily and Oliver. But it was too late. They were burned into me. The game had just shifted, and I had no idea who was holding the winning hand. I thought I wanted the truth. But standing alone in that alley, I realized something worse. What if the truth wanted me? The hotel lobby looked warmer than it felt. My shoes squeaked faintly on the polished floor, drawing eyes from the staff at the desk. I must have looked strange, pale, shaky, drenched in cold sweat. I ignored them, heading straight for the lift. My reflection in the mirrored doors looked worse than before. Hollow eyes. Face tight. I almost didn't recognize the man staring back. When the lift chimed, I clenched my fists and stepped inside. The music from the ballroom grew louder as the lift opened onto the floor where the party was still raging. Laughter, clinking glasses, shouts, it all felt unreal after the alley. My feet dragged toward the sound until I spotted her. Emily, standing near the bar with Sophie, a wine glass in hand, laughing like nothing was wrong. The sight made my stomach twist. How could she laugh when everything was falling apart? She spotted me, and her smile faltered. Just a flicker, but enough. Sophie followed her gaze, waving me over cheerfully. I ignored Sophie and walked straight to Emily, cutting through the noise like a knife. "We need to talk," I said, low but firm. Her face tightened, but she nodded, placing her glass down with shaky fingers. Without a word, she led me toward the quieter hallway. We stopped near a side door where the noise of the party dulled. My hands shook as I spoke. "I just met someone in the alley." Her eyes widened. Too quickly. Panic flashed across her face before she masked it. "What do you mean?" she asked carefully. I leaned closer. "He showed me a video. You and Oliver. Together." The silence that followed was louder than the music behind us. Emily's breath caught, and for a moment I thought she'd break. But then her shoulders straightened. She looked me dead in the eye, calm suddenly. "And you believe him?" she asked. My throat tightened. Her tone wasn't desperate, it was cold, almost daring. "I saw it," I said, voice trembling. "I don't need to believe him. I saw it." She stepped closer, lowering her voice to a whisper that cut sharp. "James, they want you to see these things. They want to break us apart. And if you let them, you're doing exactly what they want." Her words spun in my head. Dizzying. She wasn't denying. She wasn't explaining. She was twisting. My jaw clenched. "So it's true?" I pressed. She stared at me silently, lips trembling but locked shut. The silence broke me. My hand slammed against the wall beside her, making her flinch. "Why didn't you tell me?" I hissed. Her eyes filled with tears finally, but she shook her head. "Because it doesn't matter. It never mattered," she whispered. That hurt worse than any photo, any video. My chest ached as if someone had carved out my ribs. Before I could push further, the side door creaked. Sophie peeked her head in, concern on her face. "Everything okay in here?" Emily turned away quickly, wiping her eyes, putting on her mask again. "Fine," she said smoothly, forcing a smile. Sophie looked between us, unconvinced, but didn't press. She left the door swinging behind her, the party's laughter spilling in again. I stared at Emily, the distance between us heavier than ever. She reached out suddenly, grabbing my wrist. "Don't let them win," she whispered again, softer this time. I pulled my arm free, my voice low but sharp. "Then stop giving them weapons." Her face crumpled, but she said nothing. Nothing at all. She wasn't denying it anymore. She wasn't admitting it either. She was choosing silence, and that silence was worse than any confession. I didn't trust her silence. After everything, after the video, after the scarred man's words, silence was the worst lie of all. So when Emily slipped away from the ballroom an hour later, thinking I was too broken to notice, I followed. I stayed far enough back not to be seen, close enough not to lose her. My heart thudded like a drum, each beat screaming, "Don't let her out of your sight." She walked fast, her heels clicking sharply against the floor, glancing over her shoulder once but missing me in the crowd. Instead of heading toward our room, she slipped out a side exit into the night air. My gut tightened. She wasn't running away from me, she was running toward something. I fell into the cold darkness, pulling my coat tighter around me. The streets outside were quieter now. A mist clung to the ground, curling around the street lamps. Emily walked quickly, her arms crossed, her face set in determination. She didn't look scared. She looked like someone who knew exactly where she was going. I trailed her through 2 streets, my nerves sparking every time a car passed or a door slammed somewhere far away. Finally, she turned into another narrow alley. My stomach sank. Not again. I slowed, pressing myself against the corner of a brick wall, peeking around carefully. She wasn't alone. A man stepped out of the shadows to meet her. Not the scarred man. Someone younger, slimmer, with slicked back hair and nervous hands. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. They spoke in low voices I couldn't catch. The man kept glancing around, jittery, while Emily stood firm, arms crossed. Then I saw it. She handed him something. A small envelope. My chest clenched tight. Money. Documents. What was she hiding that needed to be passed in secret, in the middle of the night? I leaned closer, straining to hear, but their words were swallowed by the night. The man opened the envelope, pulled something out, and nodded quickly. Emily's voice cut through faintly this time. This ends here. Her tone was sharp, commanding, like she wasn't asking, she was ordering. The man pocketed whatever was inside and slipped back into the darkness. Emily stayed for a moment, leaning against the wall, her face in her hands. Then she straightened, wiping her eyes, and turned back the way she came. I ducked back quickly, pressing myself against the wall, heart hammering. She was coming back, retracing her steps. I couldn't let her see me. If she did, she'd know everything. She'd know I was watching, that I didn't trust her anymore. I slipped further into the shadows, holding my breath as her footsteps passed inches from me. She didn't stop. She didn't look. She just kept walking back toward the hotel. Only when her footsteps faded did I move again. I stepped slowly into the alley, heart pounding, scanning the ground. Something white caught my eye near where she had stood. A torn piece of paper. I bent down and picked it up, my hands trembling. The scrap had one word scrawled across it in ink. Oliver. My blood went cold. She hadn't denied anything earlier. And now here she was, making secret deals in the shadows, his name literally written on the evidence. I stuffed the paper into my pocket, my mind spinning. Emily was tangled in this deeper than I thought. And no matter how much it hurt, I knew one thing: I couldn't stop now. I thought I was chasing answers. But now I realized Emily wasn't the victim in this story, she was part of the game. Back in our hotel room, Emily slipped under the covers, pretending to sleep. I stood by the window, staring at the scrap of paper in my hand. Oliver. The ink smudged slightly from my sweat, but the letters cut deep into my chest. I wanted to throw it at her, demand answers, force her to explain everything. But I didn't. Not yet. If she could lie so easily, I needed more than a scrap of paper before I cornered her. The city outside glowed faintly under the streetlights. I pressed my forehead to the cold glass, trying to think. The scarred man said Emily was lying. The video showed Oliver. And now her midnight meeting ended with his name written in black ink. My stomach churned. I didn't just need to know what she was hiding. I needed to know who Oliver really was to her. At dawn, I slipped out before Emily woke. The lobby was quiet, with only a clerk at the desk watching me with bored eyes. I asked for Oliver's details under the excuse of a business follow-up. The clerk hesitated, then gave me a room number. My pulse raced. Oliver was staying in the same hotel. Too close. Far too close. I stood outside Oliver's door for a long time, listening. No voices. No movement. Finally, I knocked. The seconds dragged before the door cracked open. Oliver blinked at me, hair messy, shirt wrinkled. He looked nothing like the polished man I remembered from the event. "James," he muttered, surprised. I forced a smile. "We need to talk." He let me in reluctantly. The room smelled of stale coffee and stress. Papers were scattered across the desk, some with names and numbers I didn't recognize. Oliver rubbed his face, clearly tired. "I don't want trouble," he said before I even asked a question. My heart jumped. He already sounded guilty. "Then tell me why Emily's name keeps ending up next to yours," I said. Oliver froze. His eyes darted to the papers, then back to me. "She told you?" he asked carefully. I shook my head. "No. She's not telling me anything. That's the problem." His jaw tightened. He paced across the room, pulling at his hair. She wasn't supposed to. He stopped himself, cursing under his breath. My skin crawled. She wasn't supposed to what? I pressed harder. I know she met someone last night. I know your name was on it. If you care about her, you'd better start talking. Oliver's face twisted. He grabbed a paper from the desk and shoved it at me. You think I wanted this? He snapped. I looked down. A blurry photo of Emily. Smiling. Dancing. Same as before. Except this one was stamped with a time and date from months ago. I flipped through the stack of papers, my stomach sinking. Dozens of photos. Emily with strangers. Emily laughing. Emily was whispering to people I didn't recognize. Some grainy, some clear, but all taken without her knowing. She wasn't just on display tonight. She'd been watched for months. Maybe years. My throat dried. Who's behind this? I demanded. Oliver shook his head. That's the problem. We don't know. I stared at him, disbelief mixing with rage. You're telling me you're as lost as I am? Oliver nodded slowly. We've both been played. But James, he hesitated, eyes narrowing. Emily knows more than she lets on. That's why they're targeting her. And maybe that's why they're targeting you too. My blood ran cold. It wasn't just Emily's lies anymore. It was something bigger. And I was already too deep to climb out. Oliver sat heavily on the edge of the bed, burying his face in his hands. For a moment, the only sound was his shaky breathing. I should have walked away when I had the chance, he muttered. My chest tightened. Walked away from what? I asked. He lifted his head slowly, eyes bloodshot, guilt carved deep into his features. From Emily. From all of it. He gestured to the photos scattered across the desk. This isn't about a fling or a mistake, James. It's about something bigger. Emily, she got involved with people who don't forgive. People who keep tabs. And I was stupid enough to follow her in. My throat felt tight. You're saying she dragged you into this? He gave a bitter laugh. Dragged? No. I went willingly. That was my mistake. I picked up one of the clearer photos of Emily speaking to a man in a suit outside a cafe. The angle was distant, sneaky. Someone had been following her everywhere. Who's taking these? I asked. Oliver shook his head. No clue. They always just arrive. Sometimes in my room, sometimes sent by email, sometimes shoved under a door. Like whoever it is wants us to know we're being watched. I slammed the photo onto the desk. Then why meet her last night? Why the envelope? Oliver's eyes darkened. Because they told me to. They send instructions, and I follow. If I don't, things get worse. For her. For me. For anyone close to us. My chest burned. And you listened. He leaned forward, snapping back. You think I had a choice? The room felt smaller, the air thick with tension. I forced myself to steady my voice. So what's in it for you? Why stick around if it's so dangerous? Oliver looked away, his jaw clenched tight. Because I cared about her. Maybe still do. The words stabbed like knives. I gripped the back of a chair, my knuckles white. He saw the rage on my face and added quickly, not like you think. It wasn't love. It was survival. She made me believe we were in it together. I shook my head, trying to clear the fog. And now you're both trapped in something you won't name. Something you can't fight. Oliver gave a hollow smile. Exactly. And if you're smart, you'll walk away before it swallows you too. My chest tightened at the thought. Walk away. After everything. No. That wasn't an option anymore. I took a step closer, lowering my voice. Tell me who's behind it. A name. Anything. Oliver looked up, his eyes tired but sharp. We don't use names. They don't allow it. All I know is they call themselves the Circle. The name hit me like a punch. Simple. Cold. Menacing. And Emily? I asked slowly. He nodded. She's deeper in than anyone. And they'll never let her out. Silence stretched between us. My pulse thundered. Emily wasn't just lying. She was trapped in something dangerous. Maybe willingly. Maybe not. But either way, it meant one thing: if she was part of the circle, then so was I, whether I liked it or not. I backed toward the door, the weight of Oliver's words pressing down like lead. "Don't follow me," I said. "And don't warn her I was here." Oliver didn't move. He just muttered one last thing as I pulled the handle. "Careful, James. Once the circle sees you, there's no going back." His words followed me out into the hall like a curse. Emily wasn't just keeping secrets. She was tied to something bigger, darker, and now I was standing in the middle of it too. When I walked back into the hotel room, Emily was sitting on the edge of the bed, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. She looked up with a soft smile. "You're up early. Couldn't sleep?" Her voice was casual, warm even. My stomach turned. How could she sound so calm after everything? I forced myself to smile back. "Yeah, just needed some air." She put her phone down and patted the bed. "Come sit with me." I did, careful to keep my breathing steady. Inside, my mind replayed Oliver's words over and over. The circle. Surveillance. No way out. I wanted to scream at her, to demand the truth, but instead I asked, "How was your night? Did you sleep okay?" Her eyes flickered, just for a second. "Yeah, fine." A lie. I leaned back, pretending to relax. "Funny thing, I ran into someone this morning. Guess who?" Her posture stiffened almost invisibly. "Who?" she asked, too quickly. "Oliver," I said, watching her closely. Her face didn't crack, but her hands curled slightly into fists on the sheets. "Oh," she said, forcing a laugh. "Haven't seen him around." Another lie. My heart raced. She was hiding, just like Oliver said. I decided to push further. He looked tired. Said something about being stressed at work. "You two must have talked last night, right?" Her eyes darted to mine, searching for a trap. Then she shook her head slowly. "No, James. You're imagining things." The words were steady, but her pulse in her neck was racing. I smiled, pretending to believe her. Maybe I am. Inside, my blood boiled. She wasn't just lying, she was good at it. Too good. I leaned forward, brushing her hand with mine. "Well, at least we've got each other, right?" She nodded quickly, relief flickering in her eyes. "Always." That word clung to me like poison. She stood and stretched, moving to the mirror. "We've got that dinner tonight. Don't forget. Everyone will be there." She adjusted her hair, acting normal, like a devoted spouse. I stared at her reflection. She looked perfect. Polished. But now all I could see was the shadow of the circle behind her every move. I decided to test her one last time. "Emily," I said casually, "you ever heard of something called the circle?" The brush in her hand froze mid-stroke. For the briefest second, her shoulders tensed. Then she laughed lightly, shaking her head. "Sounds like a book club." She turned back, smiling. But her eyes gave her away, they were terrified. My chest tightened. She knew. She absolutely knew. But she was still hiding it, still playing the perfect partner. I forced a chuckle, pretending not to notice. "Yeah, must have heard it wrong." She nodded, her smile locked in place. But the room felt colder now, the walls tighter. For the first time, I realized she wasn't just lying to me. She was protecting something or someone. As we left the room for breakfast, her arm slipped through mine like always. To anyone watching, we looked like the perfect couple. But inside, I was screaming. She knew about the circle. She was part of it. And if Oliver was right, I had just stepped into their game without even realizing it. She knew. And she was going to keep pretending until the day I forced her to stop. The restaurant buzzed with low chatter and clinking glasses. Candlelight flickered across polished cutlery, making everything look warm and safe. But I couldn't shake the cold knot in my chest. Emily sat beside me, her hand resting lightly on mine. To anyone watching, we looked like the picture of love. But I knew the truth now, every smile she gave me was painted on. Around us, Colleagues laughed and shared stories from the event. I nodded along, forcing small laughs, but my mind was scanning every corner. Who else here was watching us? Who else was part of the circle? Emily leaned close, whispering something about the food, her perfume brushing against me. It should have felt intimate. Instead, it felt staged. Then I saw him. At the far end of the restaurant, near the bar, a familiar face. The scarred man. He wasn't eating, wasn't drinking. He was just there, watching. My heart skipped, but I forced my lips into a smile as someone at our table made a joke. I didn't dare look at him again. Not yet. Emily squeezed my hand suddenly. I glanced at her. She was still laughing at something someone said, but her grip was tight, almost warning me. Did she see him too? Did she know he was here? I swallowed hard and nodded politely at a colleague's story, but my focus stayed on her hand, warm, firm, hiding panic beneath charm. As the first course arrived, I leaned toward the man sitting across from us. Casual. Friendly. You've been working with Emily on the London project, right? I asked. He nodded. Yeah, she's brilliant. Knows how to handle complicated clients. The way he paused on complicated made my skin crawl. I forced a chuckle. She's full of surprises. Emily's fork froze for a fraction of a second before she kept eating. I decided to test her again. I raised my glass and said cheerfully, Emily, didn't you tell me about that group you met recently? What was it called again? Something with a circle. The table chuckled lightly, thinking it was a joke. But Emily's eyes snapped to mine, sharp and cold for just a second. Then she laughed, shaking her head. He must be mixing me up with someone else. Smooth. Too smooth. I smiled with her, but inside, I was shaking. She wasn't just hiding from me anymore. She was performing for everyone. Every word, every move, carefully rehearsed. And yet, that slip, the flash of cold in her eyes, was real. Proof that the circle wasn't just some shadow Oliver invented. It was here, at this table, in this room, watching us. When dessert arrived, I excused myself, heading toward the restroom. But I didn't go in. Instead, I walked slowly past the bar. The scarred man's eyes followed me, unblinking. My chest tightened, but I kept moving. If he wanted me rattled, he'd have to try harder. I wasn't breaking, not yet. When dessert arrived, I excused myself, heading toward the restroom. But I didn't go in. Instead, I walked slowly past the bar. The scarred man's eyes followed me, unblinking. My chest tightened, but I kept moving. If he wanted me rattled, he'd have to try harder. I wasn't breaking, not yet. Emily wasn't just lying to strangers. She was lying to me, and she was done pretending I didn't know it. Emily's eyes were sharp, her smile nowhere to be found. She stepped closer, close enough that only I could hear her. You need to stop, James, she whispered. Stop asking questions. Stop looking. Just stop. Her voice wasn't angry, it was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that came with danger behind it. I forced a nervous laugh, trying to keep up appearances in case anyone was watching. Stop what? I was just talking about dinner. Her lips curved into a smile, but her eyes stayed frozen. Don't play games with me, she said softly. You're not as good at it as you think. My throat tightened, but I leaned closer, lowering my voice. Then tell me the truth, Emily. Just once. For a second, something cracked in her expression. Fear. Real, raw fear. But just as quickly, it was gone, replaced with a polished mask. The truth is dangerous, she said. And if you love me, you'll stop chasing it. She slipped her arm through mine and tugged me back toward the dining room, her smile now warm and charming again. To everyone else, we were the perfect couple returning from a private joke. But inside, my chest was pounding like a drum. Emily had stopped pretending, just for a moment, and the truth slipped out. She was terrified. Back at the table, laughter and chatter washed over us again. Emily leaned in close to whisper in my ear, her tone sweet but laced with steel. Enjoy the night. Pretend everything is fine. Because it has to be fine. She kissed my cheek lightly, sealing the act. My skin burned where her lips touched. I clinked my glass against a colleague's, smiling like nothing was wrong. But my mind was racing. Emily wasn't just hiding secrets anymore. She was warning me. And warnings meant consequences. If I didn't play along, the circle wouldn't just come after her. They'd come after me, too. Across the room, the scarred man still lingered, watching. He wasn't eating. He wasn't drinking. He was just there, his gaze fixed on us. I realized then that Emily wasn't just talking to me when she said, "It has to be fine." She was talking to him, too. As the dinner wrapped up, Emily kept her hand on mine, her laugh easy, her charm flawless. To everyone else, she was glowing. But every squeeze of her hand was a message only I could hear. Stay in line. Don't push further. Or else. When we finally stepped outside into the cool night air, Emily slipped her arm tighter around mine. "See," she whispered, her smile wide for anyone who might still be watching. "Everything's fine." But I knew better. Nothing about this was fine. And the real storm was only just beginning. Emily wasn't asking anymore. She was warning me. And now, I had to decide if I was willing to risk everything to uncover the truth. The hotel hallway was silent, the only sound my shoes squeaking against the polished floor. I wasn't going back to the room just yet. Something told me the scarred man wouldn't just wait at the restaurant. And I was right. Around the corner, he stepped out of the shadows, hands in his coat pockets, eyes sharp and calculating. I froze for a moment. "You're late," I said, trying to sound casual. He smirked faintly. "You don't think I'd miss my chance?" His voice was low, dangerous, like gravel sliding over steel. I swallowed, heart hammering. Every instinct screamed danger. "Why are you here?" I asked. His eyes never left mine. "To warn you. Or maybe to see how far you're willing to go." I studied him carefully. The scars across his face caught the light from the corridor, sharp lines that made him look even more menacing. "Warn me about what?" I asked, though I already feared I knew the answer. He leaned closer. "Emily. The circle. The moment you think you're safe is the moment you're most in danger." I clenched my fists, trying to control the shaking in my hands. "I know enough," I said. "I know about the surveillance, the videos, Oliver. The circle." He tilted his head slowly, expression unreadable. "You know nothing, James. Nothing until you see the full game. And trust me, the pieces you've seen so far, they're just the start." I swallowed, trying to steady my voice. "Then tell me. I need to know. If I don't, I can't protect her, and I can't protect myself." The man's eyes narrowed, and he gave a faint, bitter laugh. "Protect her? You think that's your choice?" He took a step back. "You're already in. The moment you care, you're already a target. Emily warned you. I warned you. And soon. The circle will test you, too." I clenched my jaw. "Then tell me what I need to do." His eyes pierced mine, cold and sharp. "Watch. Wait. And learn who's friend, and who's enemy. And don't trust Emily, not fully. She's part of it, whether you like it or not." My chest tightened. His words felt like a punch. Part of her. I wanted to scream, to deny it, but deep down, I knew he was right. He leaned closer again, voice dropping to a whisper. "And James, if you ever cross the circle, there's no coming back. No one survives their mistake. Not even her." The words hit me like ice. I swallowed hard, nodding slightly, feeling the weight of the danger pressing down on my shoulders. He turned and melted into the darkness of the hallway, leaving me alone with my racing thoughts. My hands shook. Emily wasn't just hiding. She was trapped in something far bigger than I imagined, and so was I. And now, the clock was ticking. Every move I made could be watched, judged, and punished. I pulled out my phone and stared at the glowing screen. The location pin from before still pulsed faintly, a reminder that everything was connected. Oliver, Emily, the scarred man, the circle, every name, every secret, every lie led back to one place. And if I didn't figure it out soon, I'd be too late. The circle wasn't just watching. They were playing. and James was already in the middle of their game. I didn't go back to the room. Not yet. Instead, I wandered through the quiet streets outside the hotel, trying to piece everything together. The scarred man's warning echoed in my mind, "Don't trust Emily, not fully." And now, every interaction, every smile she'd given me, felt like a lie carefully rehearsed. I pulled up my phone, scanning for anything unusual, emails, calls, location history. A pattern emerged. Certain times, certain places, repeated names in the background of photos. The circle wasn't just watching Emily, they were controlling her. And somehow, she was still moving within their game, like a skilled player trying to survive. My hands trembled as I noticed something chilling. One of the locations matched the hotel's conference hall, tonight. Someone had been monitoring our dinner, tracking my movements, Emily's interactions. Every word, every gesture, recorded. I realized then that the circle was here, right now, invisible yet omnipresent. I needed more. I couldn't go back empty-handed. I decided to head to Oliver's room again, hoping he had more information, more clues. I slipped through the streets like a shadow, careful to avoid being seen. Each step made my pulse race. If Emily, or worse, someone from the circle noticed, it could be the end. When I arrived at Oliver's door, I knocked softly. No answer. I tried again. Still nothing. My stomach dropped. Had he disappeared? Was he taken? I pushed the door slowly. It wasn't locked. Inside, the room was empty, but the photos and papers were gone. Only a single envelope remained on the desk. I picked up the envelope carefully, my hands shaking. Inside were more photos, this time of Emily interacting with a man I didn't recognize. Suits, briefcases, coded messages in body language. And a note: "Trust no one. Not even her." My pulse thundered. The circle's reach was deeper than I imagined. Every move I made, every step I took, was being watched, recorded, and analyzed. I sank into a chair, trying to make sense of it all. Emily's warnings, Oliver's confessions, the scarred man's threats, all pointed to one undeniable truth: I was trapped in a game I didn't fully understand. And every piece of information I uncovered only made the danger more immediate, more personal. I knew what I had to do next. Find out who that man was. Find out what Emily was hiding. And survive long enough to confront both of them. One wrong move, and the circle would make sure there was no turning back. Every clue brought more questions. Every step forward pulled me deeper into the circle's game, and now, I had no choice but to play. The suited man's face was sharp, eyes calculating, posture perfect. He wasn't like Oliver or the scarred man, he radiated control. I found him in the photo, but I needed him in real life. I started by retracing the locations from the envelope: cafes, streets, and conference halls. Every location led me closer, but I had to stay hidden. The circle didn't just watch Emily, they watched everyone connected to her. I followed him through the misty streets of London, careful to keep a distance. His movements were deliberate, precise, as if he knew someone was trailing him but didn't care. Every glance he threw over his shoulder was a test, a challenge. My stomach tightened. Was he expecting me? Or was it instinct that made him so cautious? Finally, he entered a private club. I stayed outside, watching the doorman nod and let him pass without question. The circle's reach wasn't just surveillance, they had influence. Connections. Safe spaces. If he was part of this network, getting inside meant more than courage, it meant strategy. I waited for hours outside, tension building with every passing minute. Then I noticed movement inside, a shadow slipping through the door, carrying a briefcase. He paused, looked directly at the window where I hid. My heart skipped. He knew I was here. Or at least suspected. I ducked lower, letting him pass. Finally, I made my move. I slipped through a side entrance, careful not to draw attention. Inside, the air was thick with cigar smoke and whispered conversations. The suited man was there, talking quietly with someone I didn't recognize. He didn't see me yet, but I had to be careful. One wrong step, and the circle's eyes would descend on me instantly. I crouched behind a pillar, watching, taking mental notes. Their conversation was brief, but every gesture was precise, deliberate. They weren't just planning, they were observing, coordinating. And Emily. She was a player in their game, moving like a pawn. My chest burned with a mix of anger and fear. When the suited man finally left, I followed at a careful distance. His path was deliberate, leading me through back alleys and quiet streets. Every turn, every shadow, every glance felt like a test. Whoever he was important. And if I could figure him out, I might finally understand what Emily was truly hiding. I knew one thing for certain. Tonight was no longer about catching Emily in lies. It was about uncovering the structure behind the circle, and the suited man was a key piece of the puzzle. I checked my phone. Location pins, street maps, everything I had collected pointed toward a single destination. A warehouse on the outskirts of the city. My gut twisted. If Emily was involved here, this was the place she, or they, kept the real operations hidden. I had to see it for myself. The circle's game was bigger than I imagined. And the suited man was leading me right into its heart. The warehouse loomed ahead, dark and silent, like a fortress hiding its secrets. I stayed in the shadows, keeping low, watching as the suited man disappeared inside. My heart thudded in my chest. This wasn't just a meeting place, it was the core of the circle, and tonight, I was stepping into their world. I slipped inside through a side door left slightly ajar. The air was thick with dust and low murmurs. Rows of desks, monitors, and surveillance screens stretched into the shadows. People moved like ants, checking screens, whispering instructions. This was bigger than I imagined. The circle wasn't just watching Emily. They were monitoring dozens of people simultaneously. The suited man moved like a commander through the chaos, giving instructions in clipped tones. Everyone obeyed without question. My pulse quickened. He wasn't just a player, he was a leader. And Emily, if she was here, she had to answer to him. I swallowed hard, scanning the room for any sign of her. Then I saw her. Emily, in the far corner, typing rapidly at a terminal. Her movements were precise, efficient, but her eyes flicked toward the suited man every few seconds. She wasn't just participating, she was coordinating, feeding information, following orders. My stomach churned. This wasn't a victim. She was complicit. I crept closer, careful not to be seen. Every footstep, every breath could reveal me. I needed proof, something undeniable. The circle thrived on secrecy, but if I could catch even a single act, a single document, I could understand the rules of their game. The suited man approached Emily, handing her a small envelope. She glanced inside, nodded, and sent someone else to deliver it elsewhere. My chest tightened. This was bigger than I realized. Documents, instructions, movements. She wasn't just a participant. She was a key node in their network. I needed to get closer. My hand shook as I lifted my camera, snapping a few quick pictures. Focused. Blurry. Enough to have evidence if I could get out. My heart raced. Every second felt like an eternity. If I were caught now, there was no turning back. Suddenly, a shadow fell across my shoulder. I froze. A figure emerged from the darkness. Another circle operative, eyes piercing. My chest froze. This was it. My cover was blown. I held my breath, hoping my previous movements had left no trace. I slowly stepped back, thinking fast. The circle's gaze was relentless, trained to catch any intruder. If they saw me, Emily's role, my presence, all of it would collapse in an instant. I had to escape, but I couldn't leave without proof. Every second counted. One mistake and the circle would know I was here. And if they caught me, Emily wouldn't save me. My heart slammed against my ribs as the circle operative's shadow loomed closer. Every instinct screamed run, but I had to think. One wrong move, and it would all be over. Slowly, I edged backward, using the crates and monitors as cover, camera clutched tightly in my hands. I spotted a narrow exit across the room, a service door slightly ajar, dim light spilling out. Timing was everything. The operative moved past me, distracted by a colleague. I held my breath, then bolted, slipping silently through the shadows. My pulse raced like a drum in my ears. Once outside, The cold night air hit me like a wave. I crouched against the brick wall, lungs burning, camera pressed to my chest. The warehouse loomed behind me, humming with secretive activity. I had the evidence, but now I had to get back safely without alerting anyone. I moved fast, blending into the foggy streets of London. Every shadow felt like eyes watching me. Every sound, the clatter of trash, distant footsteps, set my nerves on edge. If the Circle discovered the leak tonight, Emily's complicity and my presence would become targets. Finally, I ducked into a quiet alley and stopped to catch my breath. I opened the camera. Photos of Emily, the suited man, and the Circle's operations stared back at me. Proof. Confirmation. But also a warning. I had just scratched the surface. The Circle was bigger, smarter, and far more dangerous than I'd imagined. I tucked the camera inside my jacket and melted into the streets. My mind raced. Where was Oliver? The scarred man? Emily? I needed allies, but the Circle's reach was everywhere. Trust was a luxury I didn't have. Every move I made could expose me. By the time I reached a safe-looking cafe, my hand shook uncontrollably. I had evidence, but at what cost? Emily had been complicit. The Circle knew her role, her influence. And now, I was tangled in their web, more deeply than ever. Every plan, every calculation from here on out would be life or death. I reviewed the photos again. There were faces, locations, and patterns I could start analyzing. If I could trace the connections, maybe, just maybe, I could understand the Circle's hierarchy and Emily's place within it. But first, I had to survive tonight. And in the back of my mind, one thought repeated like a drumbeat. Emily wasn't just hiding from me. She was part of them. And if I wasn't careful, she might be the one who ends me first. The Circle was watching, Emily was hiding, and now James had the proof, but escaping the next trap would take more than courage. I didn't notice her at first. Emily had been following me silently, keeping her distance in the foggy London streets. Her footsteps were soft, careful, but I could feel her presence. My pulse thudded. She wasn't just a partner anymore. She was a threat, and now she knew I had the photos. I ducked into another alley to catch my breath, checking the camera again. The photos of the warehouse, the suited man, and Emily herself glowed on the screen. Then a shadow fell across the wall. Emily. Close, silent, eyes sharp and calculating. She stepped into the faint light, her expression calm, but her eyes were dangerous. You shouldn't have done this, she whispered, voice low but firm. My chest tightened. Done what? I asked, trying to stay composed, keeping the camera hidden under my jacket. Taken pictures. Snooping where you don't belong. Her tone carried no fear, only control. My heart skipped. She wasn't pleading. She was warning. I held my ground. I needed proof. I needed to know the truth. Her eyes narrowed. Truth. The truth will get you killed, James. Not me. Not the Circle. You. She took a slow step closer. Every instinct screamed to run, but my resolve was hardening. I wouldn't back down now. I swallowed, trying to steady my voice. Then tell me, Emily. Why are you here? Why are you part of this? For the first time, her mask slipped. A flicker of fear crossed her face before she replaced it with a cold, controlled smile. I'm here because it's survival. And you? You're lucky you still have a choice. She moved closer, brushing her hand against my chest, a warning and a reminder of the control she still had. I could take that camera right now, she said softly. Erase everything. And it wouldn't matter. The Circle would just replace what you saw. Don't push this further, James. It's not just your life on the line anymore. I shook my head, chest tight. I can't ignore it. I can't pretend I don't see what's happening. Her eyes softened, just slightly, just long enough to make my stomach twist. Then you're already lost. This isn't about us anymore. It's bigger than love. Bigger than loyalty. And bigger than you think. She stepped back into the shadows, blending with the fog. You have until dawn, she whispered, almost disappearing. Then the Circle will decide if you're a player or a casualty. My hand shook as I clutched the camera. She had warned me, And I knew, deep down, that survival would take more than courage. I stood alone, heart racing, the camera heavy in my hands. Emily wasn't just hiding secrets anymore. She was a force to be reckoned with. And now, I was trapped between her, the circle, and the evidence that could destroy everything. Emily had seen the proof. She had warned him. And now, the game had changed. James was no longer just an observer. I ducked into a narrow side street, fog curling around the dim streetlights. My hands shook as I opened the camera, checking the photos one last time. Each image was proof of Emily's role, the circle's reach, and the network controlling her. But carrying them was dangerous. If she or anyone from the circle found me, it could be the end. I needed a safe place to sort through everything. I remembered an old friend, someone outside my work life, someone who owed me a favor. Quiet, reliable, and with no ties to Emily or the circle. If anyone could help me plan, it was him. My pulse quickened as I slipped through foggy streets, careful to avoid anyone watching. By the time I reached my friend's apartment, the city felt heavy, oppressive. I knocked softly, hoping no one had followed me. The door opened, and relief washed over me for a moment. "James," my friend whispered. I nodded quickly and stepped inside, closing the door behind me. Inside, I spread the photos and notes across the table. "Look at this," I said, voice low. "This isn't just Emily. This is the circle. They have influence everywhere, and I've just scratched the surface." My friend's eyes widened as he scanned the photos. "You're in deep, man. Really deep. You can't trust anyone now." I nodded grimly. We worked through the night, marking locations, faces, and patterns. I realized the circle's reach extended farther than I imagined, into offices, restaurants, and even private homes. Each photo, each document revealed a layer of control, surveillance, and manipulation. Emily was just one piece of a much larger puzzle. I couldn't stay here forever. The circle might track me, and Emily could be following. I decided to split the evidence, part hidden here, part carried with me. If I was caught, at least some proof would survive. My hands trembled as I hid a memory card in the lining of my jacket, another in my friend's apartment, in a hollow book. I leaned back, exhausted. This wasn't just about finding the truth anymore. It was about survival, planning my next moves carefully, and staying one step ahead of Emily and the circle. Every decision from now on could mean life or death. Finally, I stood, checking the streets outside one last time. The fog hid any immediate danger, but I knew it wouldn't last. Emily and the circle were out there, watching, calculating. I had proof, I had a plan, but the next steps had to be perfect. One misstep could cost everything. I packed a small bag with essentials and the most critical evidence. Tonight wasn't about confrontation. It was about preparation. The circle had played their hand. Now, it was my turn. The evidence was safe, for now. But Emily knew James had it, and the circle was always watching. The real danger was just beginning. The fog had thickened outside, curling through the streets like a living thing. Emily moved with purpose, her heels clicking softly against the pavement. Every step was calculated, controlled, like a predator returning to her territory. She had seen James with the camera. Now, it was time to report. She entered a sleek, black car waiting at the curb. The driver nodded without words. Inside, the leather seats smelled faintly of perfume and power. Across from her sat a man she called her handler, the true architect of the circle's operations. His gaze was sharp, unblinking. Emily handed him the small envelope she had intercepted from James. He examined the contents quickly. Photos, notes, locations. His lips pressed into a thin line. "He has evidence," he said quietly, eyes locked on hers. "And he's getting closer to understanding the network." Emily nodded. Calm, precise, like she had rehearsed this response 100 times. "I warned him," she said simply. "But he's persistent." The handler leaned back, steepling his fingers. "Persistence is dangerous, Emily. If he exposes any of this, the circle suffers." Her lips curved into a faint, controlled smile. "I know. That's why I'll handle it." A warning, a promise, and a reminder that loyalty came with deadly consequences. Emily's mind raced as she recounted every detail she had observed tonight. James's movements, his hiding spots, the evidence he had collected. Every action mattered. Every slip was crucial. She knew how sharp James was, but the circle had trained her well. She was both spy and protector of secrets, not James. The handler's gaze softened slightly, but only in appearance. Do not underestimate him, he warned. If he connects the dots, there's no turning back. He may still be useful, or he may have to be eliminated. Emily's eyes darkened, a flicker of something unspoken passing over her face. I understand. I'll keep him close, but controlled. She stepped out of the car onto the foggy streets again, blending into the night. Every movement was deliberate, rehearsed. James had taken a dangerous step tonight, but she knew how to manipulate it. He had proof, yes, but proof alone wasn't enough to destroy the circle. It was only a tool, and she was the wielder. Her mind flicked back to James. He was persistent, brave even, but naive. If he wanted to survive, he would have to play by her rules, or risk being consumed by the very network he sought to expose. She smiled faintly to herself. The game had just begun. Back in the car, the handler watched as she disappeared into the fog. Keep him close, he said. And make sure he never sees the whole picture. Emily nodded, knowing the weight of that command. James had stumbled into the wrong game, and now he was trapped. With her watching his every move, Emily had reported back. James had evidence. But in the circle, every move was observed, and tonight, he had become a piece in their game. I locked myself in my friend's apartment. The door bolted tight. The fog outside made the streets feel like a different world, one where every shadow could be an enemy. I spread the photos and notes across the table again. Each image, every location, every face, it was a map of the circle's influence. I had to be smart. One wrong move and Emily, or worse, her handlers, would find me. I started connecting dots, who reported to whom, which locations were secure, and where Emily had interacted with a suited man. Patterns began to emerge. The circle wasn't just a surveillance network, they were a web, and I had found a strand I could pull. But it was delicate. One false move could destroy everything. I took a deep breath. The first step was tracing the suited man. He was the key. If I could understand his role, his routines, maybe I could predict the circle's next move and stay ahead of Emily. My eyes scanned the photos from the warehouse again. Every gesture, every envelope delivery, every interaction mattered. Next, I planned contingencies. If Emily discovered my location, I had a secondary safe house ready. If the circle traced the memory cards, I had backups hidden elsewhere. Every move had to be calculated, precise, like a chess game where the stakes were life and death. I couldn't just hide. I had to act. The circle had underestimated me so far they assumed fear would keep me in line. But I had evidence, and I had the determination to survive. I would trace the network, expose Emily's connections, and find a way to use the information against them. Hours passed. I traced phone numbers, cross-referenced locations, and identified potential allies outside the circle's reach. Every discovery was a thread I could pull, a weak point I could exploit. My hands were sore, my eyes burning, but I couldn't stop. This was more than survival, it was strategy, planning, and preparation. Finally, I leaned back and surveyed my work. I had patterns, routines, and possible weak points. The circle wasn't invincible. Emily wasn't untouchable. But one thing was clear, the next move would be dangerous, and timing would be everything. I knew Emily would be watching. She always watched. But I had a plan now, a way to strike without revealing my hand. The circle's game was ruthless, but I had learned something tonight, they could be played. If carefully, strategically, and without mistakes. I whispered to myself, almost like a promise, one move at a time, one thread at a time. And this game, this nightmare ends on my terms. James had a plan. The circle had eyes everywhere. And Emily. Emily was the most dangerous piece of all. I left the apartment just after midnight, fog curling around the streetlights like ghosts. Every step felt heavy, calculated. I had planned this for hours, maybe days, but one wrong move and the circle would know I'd acted. The camera, the memory cards, the photos, they were my leverage. And tonight, I had to test it. My first stop was the private club where I had tracked the suited man before. It was quiet now, almost deserted. The circle never left traces, but I had patterns, and I knew he would check in here tonight. I slipped inside through a back entrance, heart racing, careful not to alert anyone. Inside, I placed a memory card into a hidden slot in one of the monitors I had observed before. My plan: feed controlled evidence, manipulate the information flow, and see who reacted. If the circle moved, I'd know the hierarchy, the weak points, and Emily's influence. I watched the monitors, waiting for signs. The room was empty, but the screens flickered. Faces, messages, locations all appeared on my screen. Someone was accessing the data. I smiled slightly. They didn't know it was me who controlled this particular feed. For the first time, I had leverage. Then I heard footsteps. Emily. Her presence was silent, graceful, almost predatory. She glanced at the monitors, then at me, just a flicker in her eyes, but enough to know she recognized the intrusion. She didn't move toward me yet. She was assessing, calculating. I could feel her power, her control, and the danger it brought that I stayed hidden, heartbeat pounding. This wasn't just a game anymore. It was a test. If she acted, it would be lethal. If I acted first, I could gain an advantage. Every second counted, every breath mattered. And I realized, Emily was the real threat here. I made a subtle adjustment on the monitor, redirecting a few files to a hidden server I controlled. It was risky, but necessary. If the circle traced the files, they would think the leak was somewhere else. I had to control the narrative, manipulate their perception, and survive long enough to strike again. Emily finally spoke, calm but dangerous. Clever, James. But do you really think you can outplay me? Her voice cut through the silence, low and sharp. I swallowed hard, forcing a steady breath. It's the only way to survive. She smiled faintly, the kind of smile that could either warn or destroy. I melted back into the shadows, slipping out the way I came. The first move was made, subtle but effective. The circle had reacted how, I didn't yet know, but the game had changed. Tonight, I had acted. Tonight, I had the upper hand, just slightly. The first move was made. The circle reacted. And Emily. Emily had just realized James was no longer just a pawn. I barely had time to catch my breath after leaving the club. The fog felt heavier now, almost alive, pressing against me as I moved through the empty London streets. I knew she would act. Emily always acted. And I could feel the trap closing before I even saw it. Suddenly, a text flashed on my phone, no number, just a single line: "You should have stayed hidden." My pulse skyrocketed. Emily knew exactly where I was. Not just where, but how I had moved, what I had done. The circle was always watching, and now she had sharpened their focus on me. I ducked into a side alley, trying to stay out of sight. A shadow fell across the wall, and I froze. Emily. She stepped forward, calm, deadly, her eyes locking onto mine. "Clever move tonight," she said softly, voice slicing through the silence. "But you should know. I always play to win." I swallowed hard, trying to steady my racing thoughts. "I didn't play to win," I said, voice low but firm. "I played to survive." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "And yet, you forced me to play too." Her presence was overwhelming, like a predator circling a cornered prey. Then she stepped closer, glancing at the camera hidden under my jacket. "You still have that?" she whispered. I nodded slightly, heart hammering. "It's dangerous to hold on to power you can't control," she said. Every word was a warning, every gesture a threat. She wasn't just testing me, she was striking before I could respond. A noise, a faint click, echoed through the alley. A circle operative appeared from the shadows, blocking my escape. Emily didn't flinch. She raised her hand, and the operative stepped aside, a silent signal. She controlled the situation completely. I realized then, every move I made was now under her command. I forced myself to remain calm. "What do you want?" I asked. She tilted her head slightly, faint amusement in her eyes. I want to see how far you'll go. How clever you really are. And whether you can survive me. My stomach twisted. Survival wasn't just about avoiding her. It was about outsmarting her. She stepped back, letting the shadows swallow her again. Move carefully, James, she whispered. Every choice you make is part of the game now. One wrong step, and it's over. Her presence lingered even as she vanished into the fog, leaving me shaken, aware of just how precarious my position had become. I exhaled slowly, forcing my heart to calm. Tonight had been a warning. She had retaliated without touching me, but the message was clear. Emily was not just a threat, she was the most dangerous piece of the circle. And now, the game had escalated beyond anything I had imagined. Emily had struck without moving a muscle. James had survived, but the circle's game, and Emily's lethal control, had just become far more dangerous. I returned to the safe apartment, fog swirling around the quiet streets outside. Every step felt heavy with anticipation. Tonight, Emily had made her warning clear. But I wasn't just going to hide anymore. I had to take action. I spread the photos, notes, and maps across the table, studying patterns, tracing movements, and connecting the dots. The first step was predicting Emily's moves. She was precise, ruthless, and always calculating. If I could anticipate her, I could stay one step ahead. I marked her likely paths, her routines, and potential weak spots. Every detail mattered. One mistake, one oversight, could be fatal. Next, I identified allies outside the circle's immediate reach. People who had been overlooked, underestimated, or who owed favors. I didn't have many, but even one trusted contact could tip the balance. Survival wasn't just about hiding, it was about control, leverage, and preparation. I also reviewed the memory cards I had hidden. They weren't just proof, they were tools. Evidence could be manipulated, fed strategically to influence the circle's perception. If Emily or the suited man acted, I could anticipate and counter. I felt a rare thrill. Control was mine, even if temporary. Hours passed as I traced routines, created contingency plans, and envisioned multiple scenarios. Each plan accounted for Emily's interventions, the circle's surveillance, and potential betrayals. I realized that patience was now as critical as courage. One misstep, and the whole operation could collapse. Finally, I identified the first target, a weak link in the circle's network that could be exploited without exposing me immediately. It wasn't direct confrontation, it was strategy. I would test the network, manipulate it, and draw Emily's attention to where I wanted it. Timing and precision were everything. I packed essential items, camera, memory cards, laptop, and prepared to move under the cover of fog. Tonight wasn't about hiding, it was about setting the first trap. Emily thought she controlled the game, but she hadn't counted on my planning, my patience, or my willingness to take calculated risks. As I slipped into the foggy streets, I whispered to myself, one move, one thread at a time. And now, the game begins on my terms. For the first time, I felt the thrill of initiative. I wasn't just surviving, I was fighting back. Tonight, Emily would realize something crucial. James wasn't just a pawn anymore. He was a player. James had set his first trap. Emily had no idea that the game had shifted, and the next move could change everything. Fog wrapped the streets like a living veil as I moved toward the target location. Every step was deliberate, every sound magnified in the quiet night. The first weak link in the circle's network was within reach, and tonight I intended to test the flow of information. The stakes were higher than ever. One mistake could cost me everything. I reached a small, unguarded office that appeared innocuous but held vital information. I had already scouted the security measures. Minimal cameras, no guards. I slipped inside, keeping low and quiet, placing one of the memory cards into a hidden terminal I had located earlier. The plan was to redirect data subtly, to see who noticed first. I monitored the network through my laptop. Files began transferring, locations and messages rerouted. Within minutes, I saw the first reaction, an alert from a circle operative on the other side. I smiled slightly. They hadn't realized it was me yet. My first trap was working. Then, a shadow moved across the office doorway. My pulse jumped. I ducked behind the desk just as an operative entered, scanning the room. They didn't see me immediately, giving me just enough time to remain hidden. Every second stretched, every breath felt loud. Emily had taught them to be thorough, but even the best can be deceived. Minutes later, the operative left, triggered by the subtle anomalies I had introduced. I exhaled slowly, heart pounding. This wasn't victory yet, but it was proof that I could manipulate the network from within. I had moved a piece of the board without exposing myself. I left the office as quietly as I had entered, slipping into the foggy streets. Already, I could see the ripple effect, the network reacting, misdirected, uncertain. Emily would notice this eventually, but not yet. For now, I had gained leverage. The circle had been subtly undermined, and I had control of the flow of information. By the time I returned to my safe apartment, the adrenaline hadn't left me. I studied the incoming alerts and responses from the network. Each anomaly, each reaction, gave me insight patterns, behaviors, vulnerabilities. Emily had no idea I was behind this yet, but soon she would. I allowed myself a small, grim smile. The first move had succeeded. But this was only the beginning. The circle was vast, and Emily's control was absolute, but I had found a crack. And now, I had a chance to exploit it. Tonight proved one thing: the game had changed. I was no longer just surviving, I was actively shaping the battlefield. And Emily would soon realize that James was no longer just a pawn. The first trap had worked. Emily would notice soon, and when she did, the game would escalate to a level neither of us had faced before. Emily leaned over her terminal in the dimly lit circle operations room. Her eyes narrowed as anomalies appeared on the network screens. Files rerouted, data streams disrupted. Someone had tampered with their systems. Her lips curved into a faint, dangerous smile. James had made his move. She traced the anomalies quickly, patterns forming in her mind. Whoever had done this wasn't careless, they were smart, precise, and bold. And yet, they had left just enough trace for her to begin tracking. Emily's fingers flew over the keyboard, redirecting some files, monitoring others, setting traps of her own. "Interesting," she whispered to herself. "You think you can outsmart me?" She leaned back, eyes calculating. James had acted first, but she had the advantage of preparation, surveillance, and knowledge of his patterns. Every move he made, she could anticipate, manipulate, and exploit. She initiated a countermeasure, redirecting part of the tampered data back into a monitored system. Whoever was controlling it would think they were succeeding, but in reality, Emily would watch their moves, tracking them in real time. It was a trap within a trap, a test of skill and nerves. Then she paused, thinking of James. He was bold, resourceful, and persistent, qualities that made him dangerous, but also predictable if she played her hand correctly. She would draw him in, let him feel control, and then strike decisively. Tonight, she had discovered the first cracks in his strategy and she intended to exploit them. Her eyes flicked to a photo of James she had pulled from previous surveillance. "Clever, but reckless," she murmured. She knew he was operating from his safe apartment. That knowledge alone gave her the edge. She could monitor, anticipate, and react faster than he could. Emily thrived in this game. She activated a secondary alert system, one that would notify her if he moved beyond the apartment or attempted another maneuver. Every step he took would now be visible to her. James had set the trap, but Emily was ready to counter it. She had control again, but the thrill of the chase made her pulse quicken. Finally, she leaned back, a faint smirk on her face. "Come on, James," she whispered. "Show me how clever you really are. But remember, every move you make now is part of my game." The circle had survived countless threats, but James had just made it personal. And she would make sure he understood the cost. Emily's presence loomed over the network like a shadow. She knew James was bold, but she was patient, precise, and lethal. Tonight, the game had escalated. And she would ensure that every step James took was watched, measured, and controlled. Emily had discovered James's trap. The game had escalated, and now every move he made would be observed, tested, and countered by her lethal precision. I had barely settled in my safe apartment when subtle alerts started flashing on my laptop. Someone was tracking the network closely. At first, I froze, stomach knotting. Then it hit me, Emily. She had discovered the trap. Every move I had made was now being observed. I leaned back, taking a slow breath. Panic wouldn't help. I had anticipated this possibility. It was time to adjust. If she were monitoring me, I could feed false data, manipulate perceptions, and stay one step ahead. The Circle had never faced someone who could anticipate them as I now could. I began creating multiple false trails, files leading to empty offices, redundant data, misleading locations. Emily would see activity, but it wouldn't expose my safe apartment or my next moves. It was deception, strategy, a game of shadows. My pulse quickened with adrenaline. Next, I reviewed my safe routes. Every alley, side street, and foggy corner became part of my contingency map. If she moved aggressively, I would be ready. Survival wasn't just about hiding, it was about predicting, controlling, and staying mobile. I also considered the human element. Oliver, my friend outside the Circle's reach. If Emily moved to confront me directly, he could provide backup or misdirection. Every ally, every resource, had to be utilized carefully. Mistakes would be deadly. Hours passed as I set traps within traps, false data trails, and backup safe points. Emily would notice the anomalies and move, but by then, I would be ready. I felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. The Circle had underestimated me, but now, I was learning their rhythm, their strategy, their weaknesses. Finally, I paused, leaning back in my chair, eyes scanning the foggy London streets outside. The night felt alive with possibilities and threats. Emily had the advantage of knowledge and patience, but I had momentum, foresight, and the element of surprise. The game was no longer about hiding. It was about outsmarting her at every turn. I whispered to myself, steadying my nerves, "She's watching. Let her watch. Every move she sees will lead her exactly where I want." The trap was set, the lines drawn, and the night held a dangerous promise. The final moves were approaching. Tonight, I realized something crucial. Survival alone wasn't enough. To beat Emily and the Circle, I had to play their game better than they ever imagined. Emily was watching every move. But James had adapted, set counter-traps, and was ready to turn the game back on her. The final confrontation was imminent. Fog rolled over the London streets like a curtain as I made my move. Tonight, I would force Emily to face what I had uncovered and reveal the network she served. Every step was calculated, every decision a risk. The memory cards, photos, and manipulated files were no longer just evidence. They were my leverage, my weapon, and my shield. I reached the abandoned warehouse where I had first discovered the Circle's operations. Inside, the monitors flickered to life, showing the network's control points. I initiated the sequence I had meticulously prepared, rerouted files, alerts, and data leaks designed to expose the Circle publicly and systematically. Emily appeared silently from the shadows, her presence unmistakable. "You're bold," she said, voice calm but sharp. "I underestimated you." I met her gaze without flinching. "And you overestimated your control," I replied. Tonight, I wasn't hiding. I wasn't afraid. Every move I had made led to this confrontation. The monitors displayed live feeds of Circle operations worldwide, now exposed due to my subtle manipulations. Operatives were alerted, confused, and watching the leaks unfold. Emily's eyes widened for the first time, not in fear, but recognition of my planning, my control, and the inevitability of exposure. "You've been careful," Emily said, stepping closer, her voice low. "But you can't destroy everything. You can't stop the Circle." I smiled grimly. "I don't need to destroy it. I just need to expose it. Everyone will see the truth and they'll know your role." Her face hardened, realizing that her control was slipping. I activated the final sequence, emails, photos, and videos automatically sent to journalists, authorities, and former operatives. The Circle's network began to unravel, their secrets laid bare. Emily's composure faltered, but she remained sharp. "You've won this round," she said softly, a faint edge of respect in her voice. I took a step toward her, still cautious. "This isn't personal, Emily. It's about justice, exposure, survival. You made choices. Now the world will see them. She nodded slightly, acknowledging defeat yet maintaining her lethal aura. Survival is always a game, she murmured, stepping back into the shadows. The alerts kept flashing, journalists responding, authorities taking notice. The circle's influence was fractured, and their secrets would no longer be hidden. I exhaled deeply, finally allowing myself a sense of control, a sense of survival, and a sense of victory not total, but enough. As dawn approached, the fog began to lift outside. I knew Emily would disappear into the network, regroup, and survive. But for now, I had turned the tide. Evidence had been revealed, the circle shaken, and I had survived every test, trap, and threat. Tonight proved one thing: courage, planning, and careful strategy could overcome even the most dangerous opponent. Emily and the circle had tested me, pushed me, and hunted me, but I had outsmarted them, exposed the truth, and survived. James had survived the circle's deadly games, exposed Emily's and the organization's secrets, and learned that even in a world of shadows, careful strategy and courage could turn the hunter into the player.